You know that feeling when you actually hit a milestone or you achieve something that you've been trying to for ages, you maybe doubted yourself, but you actually finally get there. And this could be anything. This could be landing a new job that you've been working really hard towards and writing down all the wins that you have and really making a proper case of why you deserve to be paid more or promoted. Or it might be starting a side hustle. It could be anything that takes time, planning, and having to back yourself. And that's exactly how we think about saving and investing at the Curve. It's how we teach everywhere across our workshops and the investing club on the podcast, building towards big stuff, whether that be growing your investment portfolio or saving up to buy something that actually takes time and preparation and confidence to get there. So yeah, while I was home in New Zealand, as in while I'm recording this right now, I have been so lucky to drive this incredible car around. And it's fair to say, a Lexus has made its way onto my wish list. And I didn't really ever think that investing in a car like this would be something that I would consider or would put high on my priorities. But the way that it's made me feel, the confidence that I have when driving this car, how safe I feel, it's just, yeah, I finally get it. And so what we've done is created a step-by-step guide to help you to get from wherever you are when it comes to saving for something big like a Lexus or something else, to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Because I think that, you know, just back to what I was saying at the beginning, it's like, it's anything that's worth having is going to take hard work and time and commitment and backing yourself to get there. And so if you would like to know the best way to save and prepare and work towards, you know, a big ticket purchase like buying a car, then we've created something to help, and it's in the podcast show notes. It's totally free to download. And because Lexus isn't just a car, it's actually a lifestyle and something that I've experienced firsthand, we have chosen some seriously inspiring women to feature in the episodes that they're sponsoring. So if you would like to download the how-to guide, it's in the podcast show notes. But otherwise, back to the podcast. Welcome to Raising the Curve, a podcast designed to teach you everything that you need to know to be better with your money. Come and learn alongside me, Sophie Hallwright, a total beginner, from the finance expert, Victoria Harris.
So I've asked all of the questions you wish you could so that finance, investing and growing your wealth actually makes sense.
Yes, it's expert education, but that we promise will not be boring.
And in the wise words of Cher,
my mom said to me, you know, sweetheart, one day you should settle down and marry a rich man. And I said, Mom, I am a rich man.
Come and talk and learn and laugh with us, because together we really can raise the curve. Firstly, thank you so much for coming in. I feel like I was walking into this interview this morning along the streets as the sun was rising around all of the incredible buildings here in New York. And I was like, this is such a pinch me moment, being able to speak to people like yourself and to be perched up in New York. It feels all a bit strange. So thank you so much for coming in.
Oh, thank you. I feel so special.
Well, because a lot of the podcast interviews that we've done or that we do obviously are either New Zealand or Australians, or now that we're based in the UK, a lot of British guests. So it's such a treat to have different perspectives and to be in a completely different country with people who have unbelievably different experiences with money and career and everything. When we were researching like who we wanted to speak to, I was like, oh my God. I mean, I nearly flew over actually. You were speaking at a financial conference and I was just stalking all of the guests and I was like, I want to speak to her. Nearly booked my flight over and then it was just all a bit of a shambles, but we made it eventually. And I guess where I wanted to start was your Ghanaian background in terms of where you grew up and also how your parents raised you with relation to career and money and finances. I'd just love to hear what your childhood was like.
I love this question. So I actually grew up in Germantown, Maryland. It's one of the most diverse suburbs in the nation. If you think Washington, D.C., the capital where our president is, Germantown is about 45 minutes to an hour away from there. So I was like right in the heart of the nation's capital. And growing up there was really transformative for me. I like to say it's the UN of like the United States because there are so many people from diverse backgrounds, and I identify as African American, or in the United States we would say Black. And for me, growing up in that environment, it was so powerful to see people who look like me, who were successful, had amazing careers. And I really do think that had an impact on what I thought about myself, my perception of myself, what I could do for myself financially. So I definitely think it really shaped my beliefs and really helped me feel confident and empowered to get a high paying job one day, be able to manage my money one day because I saw people who look like me doing it. And that's where I really realized the power of representation exposure when it comes to accelerating your financial journey.
I love what you said about the representation piece, because I do think that when you're in, like any minority group, for me, I've recently found out a part of my brain works very differently, and like I gravitate towards people who can relate to me. And I think that whether it's race, gender, sexuality, whether you are not able-bodied, there's so much power in seeing other people thrive who can identify with parts of who you are. And what you said about having successful people around you and being able to know that that was possible for you. How did you go from where you were at that time in terms of the dreams that you had and where you wanted to be and what you saw around you as inspiration to, Miss Empowher, just to reiterate, it's essentially a community for women to feel empowered and supported. And yeah, I think that that's just something that there's not enough of. What sort of took you from that moment where you obviously felt really empowered and excited by what was around you? Was there a gap in between where you are now and where you were that you felt disempowered, where you felt you didn't have options or you felt judged? What was that sort of experience for you that bridged the gap between what sounded like a really empowered childhood? What was going on for you at the time?
I think the impetus for that was most likely my experiences in college. So I would always say I was relatively confident in high school. I was a part of research programs. I was a part of clubs. But when I was in university, I originally planned to study law. And when I decided that law school was no longer for me, I really felt lost. I really felt like I didn't have that support. I didn't really have that guidance. So I think for me, I was really figuring out, okay, what does this journey look like for me? And I started going to the business school. That's where they had a lot of these networking events. And I'll never forget my first networking event. I met with a partner. I believe he worked at a consulting firm, and I was asking him for advice for breaking into the industry. And I just remember him making this statement that still sticks with me to this day, where he just cut me off and he was like, you know what, you're really pretty. You shouldn't worry about all of that stuff. Like, you can just marry rich like my sister did. And I just remember feeling shocked, shocked.
What do you even say to that? It's so shocking that you almost think, is he joking?
No, it's real life. It's real life. And I think in that moment, I realized that, one, you can't control other people's perceptions of you. You can control your own narrative. And I knew at the end of the day, while I am beautiful, I'm also smart and I'm intelligent. And one, probably not the best to work at his company because I don't necessarily like the culture there. And two, I need to find mentors. I need to find sponsors who won't push that narrative on me and who will encourage me to think bigger, dream bigger. And it also made me realize that there are probably so many women who have those experiences where they go into spaces where there may not be a lot of women. And how are they going to find the support and resources to thrive in their careers? So I wanted to build a community that supported them with their personal and professional development. Also because I realized through that journey where I was gaining confidence in the professional world, so much of getting that job, getting the opportunities comes down to confidence. So I didn't want to just build a community that's like, here's how you do your resume, here's how you interview. Also teaching women the skills to gain that confidence so that when moments like that happen, because they will, unfortunately, it doesn't shake them up. They can still power through.
Gosh, I really do think actually, when I was researching for this interview, I was thinking about the idea of confidence. And, I've done the classic written words of affirmation and stuck them up in my mirror, but I don't think that really gets to the root of insecurity or self-esteem problems. It can kind of band-aid it, but it's not creating lasting empowerment or something that's going to kind of stand the test of time when you get tested by men like that. Is there any universal advice or suggestions that you have for people who are listening that think, shit, I really don't have much confidence?
That is a great question. I think it's hard because everyone has a different personality, but I would always say the one thing you have to do is get over your fear of failure. So I can share an example from my experience. I am deeply afraid of public speaking.
Me too. But it's so weird because when I was looking at you online, you public speak all the time. You know, like it's a part of your career.
Yes, and I had to do that. That's why I got on TikTok. That's why I got on Instagram, because I realized I'm growing this women's community. I was getting all these press features and I was like, I don't want to appear nervous. I don't want to appear anxious. So when it started, I really started with the alter ego. I thought about what's a public speaker that I really admire. And for me, that was Issa Rae. She has a show on HBO called Insecure. She's really intelligent, but she's also so personable. And I knew when people see me, they see this super serious person, and I'm like, I'm just actually quite introverted and reserved, even though on social I probably appear more extroverted. So I started to study people like Issa Rae, and then over time I would continue to put out more videos. Every time there was a speaking opportunity on a panel, I would say yes, and over time I felt more comfortable. I came into my skin, and I'm not gonna lie, I still get nervous. I still practice what I'm going to say or think about my talking points, but I also have trained myself when I go into interviews, when I show up online. At the end of the day, when I'm doing my online videos, I just pretend it's a FaceTime call. When I'm doing a podcast, I pretend I'm talking to a friend, an auntie. And I think that's what helps me feel a little bit less insecure or overwhelmed. But I would say continuing to put yourself in positions to fail. So applying for that grant, applying for that internship, applying for that job.
Isn't it?
It is scary, but then also remembering if you want to win, nobody's seeing the 99 rejections. They're just seeing that win. I, this year, got Forbes 30 under 30.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
by the way. That's incredible.
Thank you so much. But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't put myself out there. I didn't tell my mentors, this is something that I really want. It takes courage to put yourself out there. It takes courage to send that note. And I think a lot of people won't have those opportunities because they're afraid to even make the ask. They're afraid to put themselves out there. And doing that and being okay with a no, or being okay with being ghosted over time, I think builds that confidence.
God, the
it builds
ghost.
the resilience.
No, you're so right. And actually, it's, you know, you hear every great successful person speak about their failures. It's so common. You never hear someone up on stage who's incredibly successful saying, this was easy, it was a smooth sailing journey, I didn't have any rejections. Like, it's never the case. So it's kind of like you have to decide if that's what you want. It comes with all of that baggage and all of, you know, all of the rejection, all of the times that you muck up or do the wrong thing, because that's taking you a step closer to whatever confidence is, whether that's with your personal finances, your career, whatever. You did mention your aunt just then, and I wanted to just backtrack because I read a story online about being given, excuse me if this isn't the correct term, waistband, West African beads or something at a really pivotal time in your life. And it really catapulted your journey towards feeling empowered. I'd love to hear what that story was.
Oh, you're going to get me vulnerable on here. I love it. I love it. So when I first started Miss Empowher, which is my women's community, it was after one of the worst breakups of my life. I mean, boo-boo, just crying. Just,
oh my God, I totally...
I was at one of my lowest moments. And after that breakup, just given some of the things that happened in that relationships, I was just feeling really insecure about my body. And I never really had that experience. Like, my body was just what I used to get through the day, to walk, and I was grateful, but I never looked at myself and I was like, I'm not good enough. And when I looked in the mirror, I was starting to experience those feelings. And around that time, I've talked to my aunt, and one of the things that's really big in our culture is waist beads. I'm Ghanaian-American. It's just a sign for women to really embrace their femininity, to help with confidence. Sometimes there's ancient tales that it helps with fertility. It has so many different meanings, but for me in particular, it was a real tool in helping me feel confident again. And she'd always have them growing up, so that was her gift to me. And I started going back to the gym. I started just kind of looking at myself in the mirror more, and day by day wearing those waist beads. It was just something that helped me come back into myself, to really practice that self-love. So when I got back from, I think it was a trip at university, I thought, why not start a community? I had concepts of a plan. And I decided that I was going to launch Miss Empowher with this product. Obviously now, 4 years later, it's evolved into a digital media company and women's community, but it did start with those waist beads and selling the product to women.
So you sold those?
Yes.
Because honestly, I'm hearing you speak, I'm like, I need some waist beads.
You can, if you
Could
go on
I
the
wear
website.
them? 'Cause I think that something that you can almost have under your clothes with you at all times that no one necessarily can see is kind of powerful in itself.
It really is. And like for so many women, it really helped them feel confident in their bodies. But I always love when I see men also being allies to women. So when I started the brand, some people, their boyfriends actually purchased waist beads for them because they found that it was helping their girlfriends feel more confident in their bodies and helping their relationships. And you often don't think about the larger impact of what you're doing. Like for you, it might just be like, wow, I love these waist beads. I want to share. For me, it was really important to educate the world on my product. It's similar to how we're seeing Afro beats to the world now. I think it's okay, but I think it's really important to educate people on the origins. For me and for my waist beads, I allow women of all races, all backgrounds to wear my product. But on our website, we're really sure to educate people on the origins. And what's also nice is that we actually source our waist beads from small business owners that identify as women in Ghana. And it's really beautiful because they use the money that they get from us in order to pay for their children's school fees. So for me, it's a real full circle moment, which I really value.
Oh gosh, you've said so many things. I want to like ask millions of questions. One of the things that I'd really love to pick up on is exactly what you said. There's such a scarcity mindset that is such a hangover from the lack of women in work. There's this underlying competitiveness and there's not enough space for everybody. And as much as we've moved away from that, there's still residue there. I'd be totally lying if I said there aren't moments of feeling jealous or competitive against other women. And it's so ingrained. And I mean, it's a lot less common for me now to experience it, but I do think that it's very much everywhere in society, as much as we try and say it's not. What's been your experience building the community you have now? And I guess just what are your thoughts on how we can start to continue to move away from that kind of scarcity, competitive mindset with each other?
For me, I try to lead by example because I think once you see those examples and other women are saying, okay, she's building her brand by collaborating with other women, giving them a platform. I know that's been the case for me and my mentor. So I have a mentor called Shelly Zalis. She's the founder of the Female Quotient. It's a large women's platform as well. And she does the same thing with her platform. She encouraged me to do that as I was building Miss Empowher. So I think that's one example. I think being the one to put yourself out there first and offer the opportunity to partner with other women's leaders. So for me, what that looks like is having our ambassador program. So we host events locally and we give women who are growing their personal brands or growing their businesses the opportunity to partner with Miss Empowher. And that's really elevated them to the next level. Also, when it comes to things like making sure that women have the opportunity to access investors if they're starting up their businesses, while I don't necessarily have that a part of my ecosystem, I also have a big network of women who work in VC that are angel investors. So we like to have events for female founders and investors. I think there's ways in which you can do it on a small scale, on a large scale. I think it just requires that level of intentionality. But I truly do think the answer to this is more women having the courage to collaborate, because when you see it and you see that it works, more follow.
I love that. That's such a good answer. And it kind of really stems into everything you do, like if you want there to be like less rubbish on the street, you don't need to tell someone else to do it. You can just pick it up and put it in the bin, and it's small acts of demonstration of how you can do things differently. Sparks that like, oh, I could do that too in other people's minds. And I think, yeah, that's such a great answer. I just want to pick up on what you said there when you mentioned your mentor, because I know for you, this is a huge part of your development and something that you're a massive advocate for. When it comes to picking a mentor or being a mentor, what do you think are the most important things for people to either think about or look for? And in your experience, what have your mentors given you? Why is that such an important piece for your journey to where you're trying to get to?
Oh man, these questions are amazing.
Oh really? God, I feel like I'm aware we don't have all the time in the world, so I feel like I'm word vomiting all of these questions at you.
No. I think you're really going to help a lot of people with these questions. For me, when I think about mentorship, I actually think of the spectrum of sponsorship. So I think where people go wrong with mentors and sponsors is they don't really understand the spectrum of sponsorship because people want to show up differently. So when I think of a mentor, it's that person that I'm going to for advice. When I think about a coach, those are the people in my network that want to give me those actionable tips. When I think of a strategizer, that's that person that's really helping me map out what are my next steps? What does that look like? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to partner with? What job opportunity do I need to take? When I think about my connectors, those are the people who might be making those introductions to influential people. When I think about my sponsors, those are the people who aren't necessarily going to be giving me advice on the day to day. They may be quite busy, but they will be those advocates that put me up for promotion if I'm in a corporate career or give me sponsor for my next event.
When you say sponsor, do you mean like brands or people?
It can be both. So when you think about that spectrum of sponsorship that I mentioned, a sponsor is really in that advocate role. I think where people go wrong is they try to get an all-in-one, and people don't always want to be an all-in-one. So I like to break it down into mentor, connector, strategizer, sponsor. That way I can really understand what role the person wants to play. I also do that with myself. When someone asks me, can you be my mentor? Can you be this to me? I might realize that I'm not in the best position to be their mentor, but you know what? I can be your connector. I can be your strategizer. I can be your coach, or in some cases, I can be your sponsor. I think it's really important to know what role people play. I think that will help you have better relationships overall, especially when it comes to expanding your professional network.
I don't even think that those terms have been really used in Australia or New Zealand or the UK. I've never really heard them. I mean, I've heard mentor, sponsor, strategist. What were the other ones that you mentioned?
Connector and coach.
Can we just quickly define what all 5 of those are? So a mentor obviously is somebody who can be there for you to bounce ideas, to give advice from their perspective, what they've lived. What would the difference be between that and like a coach?
Yeah, so a coach, they're really giving you those actionable tips. They're stopping and starting with you when you go wrong, helping you work through those problems. When you think about a connector, that is someone who is making those introductions, connecting the dots. So if you have this podcast episode, you maybe wanted to get to me, you find that we have a mutual on LinkedIn or Instagram, you're asking that person to connect you to me in order for you to be more successful with your goal. And then the last being a sponsor. These are often people in high positions or extremely influential. They might not always have the time or bandwidth to be your mentor, but they still want to support you. They still want to invest in you. And they might be the ones to give you that job opportunity. They might be the ones to help you get funding for your business if you're trying to raise capital. I think it's also important to remember with sponsors in these high positions of power, sometimes they're often people who want to give back and pay it forward. But when they're a sponsor, they're very careful about who they extend their name to, their brand to. And I always like to say everyone wants winners on their team. So the more you can show you're a winner to your sponsor, the more they're going to want to invest in you. Because they might be busy and they might not always have the time, it might feel like, wow, it's really hard to build this relationship with this person over time. So what I like to do with my sponsors is to keep them up to date as I'm making wins. I know I will maybe talk to them once a year, twice a year, just because of their schedule. But if I get a media feature, I will send that to them. If I make a win in my business, I'll send that to them. You just really want to make sure you're keeping them in the loop, because then they feel like, wow, okay, I've made this great opportunity for her. I've helped her, get on Forbes 30 under 30, or I've helped her get this big sponsor for her business. I'm seeing her growth over the years. That's really how you keep your sponsor engaged, which I don't think a lot of people talk about.
It's quite interesting because what you're talking about is really similar to what we've experienced. We raised capital last year for the first time, and it's almost that it's like treating yourself as a business, isn't it? It's treating yourself and your mentors, your coaches, your connectors and your sponsors as almost this network that you want to keep updated, almost like a business update, but a personal update, which I've never heard anyone talk about before. It's like creating a web of people and being really specific and targeted about who you pick for different roles, because everyone offers something different. I would love to know, is there a particular story or person that has been empowered thanks to you and your work, that you were like, wow, the magnitude of what this has done to change their life is the essence and the reason why I've started doing this work?
There are so many. I think for me, it's the stories of the women who come to our event and they let me know that because of the information that they learned, they've maybe been able to negotiate a job offer, or maybe they started finally opening up that high yield savings account. I think on a more personal level, the women who have been a part of my intern teams, seeing them leverage their experiences in Miss Empowher, building out our events to get to the next level in future jobs, that's also really beautiful for me, given that we are still a startup. And seeing them leverage that experience and taking it to the next level in their future job opportunities has really been exciting. It's been rewarding. It's been beneficial. But I think the most beautiful thing for me and seeing the women in our community evolve is seeing them connect with each other. It is so hard to make friends as an adult. It is so hard to put yourself out there and build your professional network. And one thing I love about Miss Empower is that there's just like no pressure at our events. It's just all about connections. And especially in the States, one thing that I've always not liked, especially like now that I'm an influencer, I'm a content creator, you go to so many of these events and sometimes it's about who you know and how many followers you have. And one of the things I love about our community is you have women who might not have that social capital and you might have women who do, and they're having interactions. They're all meaningful. They're not feeling like if they're not in a certain place yet in their career, if they don't have the social followers, they're not worth being in the space. I love that there's that sense of belonging and you can show up as your authentic self.
Well, I think it's also the idea that often there's events for influencers, right? So it's like everything's so gatekept, whether it's financial knowledge, whether it's how to grow a following on socials, and really what you're doing is breaking that down so that everyone can be a part of all of those conversations. So cool. I'd love to pick up on what you just said about the high yield savings account and just mentions about the sort of financial piece, because you often talk about financial literacy as a real form of empowerment. I would love to know what personal experiences lead you to realize the importance of understanding money, saving, investing. Did you go through a journey of, oh, wow, I feel so much better or more empowered when I have XYZ in place?
Yeah, I think similar to what we talked about a little bit earlier, growing up Ghanaian-American and growing up in the States, for me, my mom, my dad always really emphasized the importance of women having their own money, just because it gives you so much freedom to walk away from a bad relationship. It gives me that security. Like if I'm not feeling safe in an environment, I can afford to take an Uber without having that financial stress. Also having that exposure. So when I was in university, I was a part of entrepreneurship accelerator programs. And with that, you get to be paired with mentors who are angel investors who have built these successful businesses. And I think seeing other people, seeing other women be successful really inspired me to really get my stuff together when it comes to my financial journey. In terms of starting to share what I learned online, I'm not a financial advisor, but I am able to share what I've learned along my personal finance journey with other women. Really started from a group chat. I would have friends when I graduated from uni asking me, hey, how do I set up my retirement account? How do I set up my finances so I know how much I can afford in rent each month and I'm not going over budget? And I just thought, why not go online and share what I'm learning along the way? I wasn't seeing a lot of women that look like me sharing that information, and it's just grown into a beautiful community, and so many women now are able to benefit from my lessons and my resources. One thing though that I have learned along the way that I don't think a lot of people talk about when it comes to personal finance is it's also the lifestyle decision. So the friends you make, the people you choose to date, those people can also impact your personal finance journey. I've been lucky enough to date men that have been very supportive of me growing my business, sharing knowledge, sharing resources, telling me what they're doing with their finances, being comfortable talking about money. When it comes to friends, also being very transparent about the smart money moves that they're making. And I really encourage women in the Miss Empower community on socials to do the same. your friends will have such an impact in terms of exposing you. So really making sure that you're finding those spaces. It's really taking control over how you find that community, how you find that exposure.
And it all just comes down to sharing knowledge, right? Because for so long, these conversations have been in like tiny echo chambers, mostly with men. It means that the more open we can be and lead by example, then the more that everyone benefits, because it's so important. Oh, I'm so excited to be telling you about Be Pure. This is a brand that I've been using since I've been home in New Zealand, but actually have loved forever. The reason that I'm talking about Be Pure today is because ahead of New Zealand winter is a really good time to be investing in your health. There's 3 particular Be Pure products that are part of an Immune Essentials pack. The first one, which I've been taking for a couple of months now, is the Zinc Restore. I didn't realize what a massive powerhouse mineral this is for all-round health. It supports your gut, immunity, hormone balance, mood, energy. It's been very much needed for me, so this has been part of my daily routine. The Super Boost C, this is high potency, fast-acting immune support. It's got over 3 grams of vitamin C per serve. It's kind of like inhaling 39 oranges. And then the third one for your winter toolkit is the Vitamin D Restore. It's also very good apparently for PCOS, side note. But this is a really important one for anyone that experiences seasonal depression. So I will be taking this back to London with me. It's kind of like sunshine in a bottle. If you would like to get 20% off these 3 products for the Immune Essentials pack, you can do that. There's a link in the podcast show notes. One thing that I would say is just so brilliant about this is that you can pay month by month and they come and are delivered, so you don't have to go and invest in 3 months worth of products up front. You can pay month by month. You can factor that into your budget, but also it's low admin. You're not having to go and order them every month, which for someone like me who forgets everything, that is ideal. So thank you so much to Be Pure for making my body and mind feel so much healthier. Yeah, and for any details about these products, you can find them in the podcast show notes. One of the things that I would love to know is why is it's so important that we have more women who feel financially empowered, and how do you think that's going to impact the world?
That's definitely a big question, but the first thing that comes to mind is women's influence in the economy, especially because we drive so much of consumer spending. Also, as we think of the great wealth transfer that's happening. And when I refer to that, it's the parents that are retiring, the grandparents that are retiring, the ones that are going to be giving women those properties one day that will be shifting over their assets. When women have access to that capital, that means that they have a decision. They can decide to invest in real estate. They can decide to invest in other women-owned businesses. We already know that women get less than 2% of venture capital. Venture capital is often key to accelerating businesses and really taking them to the next level. So I think it's really important for women to be aware of what does it take to be an accredited investor? What are the different opportunities like angel investing, crowdfunding, VC, private equity, and how can we get more women in those industries? How can we get the woman with capital, the knowledge to become limited partners in these VC funds, to become angel investors, and then use the capital that they have to invest in other women-owned businesses?
So it's essentially the more women that realize the options that there are in terms of growing businesses, in terms of being able to distribute money into different types of businesses, the more representation and change we will see globally, because there's women in power, there's women running businesses, there's women who have brilliant ideas that are actually being funded, and therefore globally we have more businesses and solutions and services that are catered towards women rather than it being really skewed.
Yes, because with every system, there's checks and balances. So, okay, women have the money, but the thing is, if women have the money, there needs to be enough women in those companies to be able to influence the decision makers, right? So it's all a trickle down effect.
And when it comes to your own investing journey and how you approach your money, what are kind of the key fundamentals that you really, I was about to say live and die by, which is so dire, but like, what are the things that you really think have helped you to get to a place of financial security?
I love that. I think a lot of people will tell you definitely make sure that you are spending less than you make. I mean, that's just the basics. I think another thing that is often not talked about is sometimes it takes spending money to make money.
I love that.
And I think that's also really important and to be very intentional. So obviously I'm a busy girl. I am a corporate girly. I have my own women's community. I'm a content creator. There are a lot of demands. That means that I really had to get comfortable outsourcing in order to protect my mental health while still accelerating my wealth building journey and investing in my businesses. So that meant getting things like a talent manager. She takes 20% of all my deals. And yes, that is a big chunk, but it is needed for me to get to the next level. That also means making sure that I'm outsourcing in my personal life. That means paying for a cleaner to come so I can get some time back. So really being intentional about how you not only delegate in your business, but how you delegate in your personal life. Because I've seen time and time again from my elders and women who have just really built the empires is that by the time they built their empires, they're burnt out. They're not happy in their personal life. And I think it's important to have both elements and be really intentional as you're accelerating your wealth building journey, because yes, maybe you will become that, as I like to say, pretty wealthy woman one day. But if you don't have people to share it with, that's also not a great life. So you just really want to be intentional about that on your wealth building journey.
The outsourcing piece is such a great piece of advice, because I know when we first started the curve, I felt really uncomfortable outsourcing things because the idea of spending money when I could just do it myself made no sense. But really, to be able to build something sustainable and also to have a sustainable mental health and to be healthy outside of what it is that you're pouring your heart and soul and time into, it's such a, I don't know, for me it was, and I think it comes from a scarcity or like lack mindset, where the idea of paying somebody to do something that I could just do myself is like, why would I do that? But to be able to have more people help so that it frees you up to do more of the like high paying parts of whatever your, business needs. For example, if it's like having someone manage social media, even though you can do it yourself, is that freeing you up to be doing more of the like important or higher paying parts that are going to grow the equity in that business even more than what if you were just like spreading yourself so thin across everything. I think that's such an important thing to learn. In terms of your personal finances, how you divide up where you put your money, do you have, your like wants, your needs, and then you're investing? And how do you figure out how much you're actually putting into investments?
I think I take a little bit of a non-traditional approach, and it's been so long because I've automated it. So I would need to go back. I actually am a big fan of using digital tools, Monarch in particular. Origin is also great, and there's so many different budgeting apps. These are just the ones that I've partnered with recently, but it will actually link all of your different bank accounts, and then it will tell you like your asset allocation. So what percentage you have in cash, what percentage you have in stocks, and then what percentage you have in credit card debt. So you can really get a good idea of your financial picture. So I always recommend starting there, then really figuring out like how much money that you're bringing in each month, and then making that decision of, okay, how much do I want to spend in rent? How much do I want to spend on wants? How much do I want to spend on my needs? It really depends on what your financial goals are. Everyone is different. For me, when I think about my systems, that was really big for me. So when I was first sitting down post-grad, and I still have the same system to this day, I knew by nature I am a spender. I would encourage everyone to read The Psychology of Money.
Oh, we've done an episode on this.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, I haven't read it. I've just had the top lines from Vic, but it sounds like the most amazing book.
Yes, I think understand your money trauma, understand what your style is. I think that will inform the strategy that works for you. So because I know by nature I can spend money, so what I like to do is always making sure that I'm paying myself first. And when I say paying myself first, making sure that I'm investing first before I'm spending on my wants. And I do that by automating. So when I get my payday, I have 2 checking accounts. I have one for my bills, one for my personal spending. From my bills, I have a select amount that goes every single month to my brokerage account for my investments. Then I have another portion that goes to my short-term savings account. This is like for my vacations, or like if I want to, splurge on clothing one day, like just some money allocated for those types of things. And then I have like a long-term savings account. So like my emergency fund, things like that. And then my personal spending, that's what I use for my everyday spending. Actually, though, for my everyday spending, I don't directly spend out of the account. I charge everything to my credit card because I want to leverage those points. I'm a big traveler, so I encourage people to get the credit card according to their lifestyle and just pay it off in full every month.
I don't trust myself to do that. I can't.
But here's like my system to make it work because, again, naturally a big spender. I charge it to this travel credit card, but I make sure every 2 to 3 days I'm paying off that card from my personal spending.
I can't. I'm not good at admin. So for me, that's not going to work. But if you're good at it, like I know Vic, she's great at it. So she does.
It's not for everyone. That's just what works for me. And again, when I share on my platform, I'm just truly sharing my experiences. You can always pick and choose the parts that work for you. But I have found that my community really does like separating your bills from your personal spending. I have found is really, really instrumental.
I definitely do that as well. I think it makes such a difference because then you know how much you've got on the things you want. For example, yesterday I was walking through Brooklyn and I went into this vintage shop and there was this really cool handbag and it was $80 and I thought, oh, I really like that and I know I don't need it. And I went into my, my, as you're calling it, checking account, I have it's called wants and I have like a heart on either side and I had $83 in it to last me till tomorrow. And I thought, absolutely not, because if I need food tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to afford it. I'll have $3 or like $250 US to pay for that. And I was like, okay, right. So it's a no-brainer. I think for me, when I can see the amount that I'm working with, it's much easier to make decisions on, do I want it? Is it worth it? Because I know that by buying that handbag, what I'm not going to be able to spend, and I think that unless you know those numbers and you can really easily see them, it's so hard to make clever decisions because you're not actually thinking, what am I giving up by spending this money? In terms of your investments, that, say 10% that you put towards investments and not your retirement. So
I definitely put more than 10%.
Do you? What is your percentage?
I have to check, but I think I have like 90 to 9% of my money overall, like in investments.
Wait, hold on. That makes zero sense to me. 90%
of my net worth. Sorry. Correct.
Okay,
Probably should have explained that.
Right.
But again, when it comes to like your personal finance strategy, like it's very, very personal. Right now, I do really want to focus on investing because of my background. I know that I don't need to have as much in my emergency fund personally, just because I do have a very supportive family that I can go back to. I have like a plan of what that looks like.
Do you mean if you couldn't pay rent, you could go home? Is that kind of
I
what
could
you mean?
go home. I also have additional revenue streams through my business, through being a content creator as well.
So because you have multiple revenue streams and money coming from different places, you don't feel the need to have a massive emergency fund. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yes, but that is not what I would recommend for everyone. It is just what is working for me.
It's a really great point. And the idea of personal finance being so personal is such an important one because for me, it's very different. Like I do feel like I'm trying to get to 6 months, to be honest. For me, because I have one revenue stream and it's a startup, and that's a really good example of why it makes sense for you to have less in your emergency fund, but it makes sense for me to have more. For me, that's what feels good. But then when you say that you've got 90% of your net worth in investments, is that in the stock market? Is that in property? How have you invested?
It's definitely a mix. So I have my retirement account. I have my brokerage account as well.
Brokerage, you mean you trade your own shares, like you buy stocks?
I do have some individual stocks, but most of it is in index funds. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, just sharing what I personally do. But I'm a big fan of investing in the S&P 500 index fund. I always recommend actually starting with your bank and calling your bank. I think a lot of people don't realize that banks have free resources that can, teach you how to navigate like the website, like what is a mutual fund versus like an ETF versus an index fund. They will have educational resources. They will have someone you can speak
or you
to.
can look at the curve, the curve has quite a few.
I
heard it's this random, financial education platform.
Yes, there's so many resources. So I actually encourage people to start there.
And I guess my question for you is what percentage of the amount that you invest would go towards a more diversified approach, the S&P 500 versus particular stocks? Do you do a small portion of your amount to that stuff, and then majority kind of goes to the big diversified, S&P 500?
Yeah, I would say 70 to 80% of my investments are in really diversified index funds like the S&P 500, and then maybe 20 to 30% I like to
just dabble in different things.
And I think as I grow throughout my personal finance journey, that's when you'll see me making maybe more angel investments one day, or investments into VC funds. What else will I dibble and dabble with? I think real estate one day. But there are also many different paths with real estate. And I talked about the great wealth transfer.
What is the stat? It's a shitload of money being transferred to the hands of women, right? And I can't remember off the top of my head what it is.
Because we will be hopefully fortunate to inherit properties and inherit assets from our parents, our grandparents. And again, that's why I say personal finance is so personal, because if that is your financial case, obviously not everyone has that background of being able to benefit from inheriting a house or a property. You might decide, okay, if I know in the next few years I will be inheriting this, maybe I want to focus more on investing in the stock market versus real estate. Everyone is different based on what their appetite is, because real estate, while you can make a lot of money, you can also lose a lot of money as well. So just figuring out what makes sense for your personality and your financial journey is also really important.
But there's just so many options. Sometimes I just wish there was a more clear formula. I know that it all comes down to personal preference. I know this. I've learned it for years and years now. I'm aware of it, but I imagine there will probably be people listening to this that feel kind of frustrated with the amount of options and the amount of work and the amount of this and that, and maybe just feel overwhelmed by the concepts that we're talking about. What kind of advice or encouragement do you give to your community and to anyone listening to this that might be feeling a bit overwhelmed by the idea of it? Because it sucks that we can't be direct because we're not financial advisors. So I don't know. I know that because this was me years ago, I'd be listening to conversations like this and I'd be like, God, now I've got a million new options, and now I just... sometimes you can feel so frustrated you just don't do anything. Oh, yeah.
Decision fatigue, overwhelm is definitely real. So I would first start by thinking about yourself, your personality, where you're at. Think about the primary ways in which women acquire wealth. So one, sometimes it's through marriage, sometimes it's through inheritance.
Are you telling us to get on a dating app? What's going on here?
No, I'm
find a rich husband.
No, I'm just truly being honest and sharing the stats.
No, I'm joking.
How women, I don't believe in shaming women. I believe in empowering them with the tools and resources to each their own.
No, so it's a really good point, honestly, because it is true. That's how a lot of people do get wealth, is by marrying into it. So marrying into it. And not only that, too, sometimes marrying the right partner, you can choose to invest together. Two is through inheritance. So if it's being passed down from you, there's ways in which you can do that. Sit down with your family early and often. Actually make sure that everyone has a will. Making sure things are set up so you won't be paying too much inheritance tax when it comes to properties. Making sure you can sit down with a lawyer and maybe get a trust set up so that you're really set up. Even if you do come from a middle-class family, lower-class family, making sure you get your family on life insurance so you're not going into debt, covering family members' funerals. All those decisions go into shaping our wealth. The third is owning a business. Sometimes it's you starting your own business and accelerating that journey. Look at all these creators that have built their businesses. Sometimes it's acquiring a small business that's already successful and then using your knowledge and skills to take it to the next level. Some people it's real estate. Some people it's I just want my corporate job, living below their means, investing, maybe getting a job with equity. I think it's just really sitting down,
looking at maybe those 5 options and saying, what is the number one place I want to start based on where I am?
That's such a good answer.
Yeah.
I love that you just laid out those 5 options.
Yeah, everyone's path looks different. So it's just really about having the knowledge, skills, and resources, and then taking a little bit of time to do that self-reflection and then prioritizing.
What is your strategy? Like, what are the things you're focusing on of those 5 options to grow your own wealth?
Ooh, I don't think I've ever been asked that before. I think for me, marriage and children is also really important. So I think I do consider those things as I'm dating and I'm getting older. Right now, I'm realizing that you only get one life. So for me in that season, it really looks like investing in my businesses, investing in my relationships. On my pages, I talk a lot about becoming a pretty wealthy woman. And for me, that looks like investing in my education, investing in my relationships, investing in my appearance. And I feel like that's really what's helping me accelerate my financial journey. So really doubling down on those 3 things, because I think they have a ripple effect in all other areas.
You're really diversifying your options here.
Yes, well, I'm young and I have energy. I should.
Yeah. I would love to just touch on quickly before we wrap up the mention of relationship and the idea of marriage and kids being important to you, and also the very real reality that when you combine finances with somebody, you are doubling down on potentially, an even better financial future. I can't remember if it's a quote or if this is just something that's said, but the idea that one of the biggest financial decisions that you can make is actually who you marry.
Yes.
How do you approach that when it comes to dating?
I love that question. I really think about the person's character and shared value. And money comes and goes. So really thinking about, like, if they were to lose everything, how resilient are they? What do their skills look like? What does their emotional intelligence look like? How do they manage those hard times? How do they treat people? Because even if you have a successful business, if you don't treat people well, who's going to want to work with you? Who's going to want to invest in you? And all of those things are really, really important. So that's why I really double down on character. I also know that, yes, it's great to be building money, but I also really prioritize family and making people feel valued and prioritize even when you are busy, even when you are accelerating that business. So really thinking about what type of partnership makes you happy, because at the end of the day, like, your partner, even though nobody likes to say it, is going to be your therapist, your friend, your confidant. And I think when you are with someone who brings out the best in you, who brings out that confident self, when you feel like supported, you feel loved, you show up better in your businesses, you show up better in your life. And when you are not, you show up drained. And that can also have a negative effect on the bottom line and the things you're trying to achieve. And I don't think we talk about that enough.
Oh, it's hard. Like, I so know what you mean. I think it's not as black and white as what is their salary or what is their, how much have they invested. It's how do they deal with everything from people to the stress of something not going right to, it's a lot more nuanced. And I think, it's also the realization that someone might look like they have money because they've inherited it, but do they know how to use it, or are they just spending it?
That's another big thing, especially coming from a family where I've seen, or I've heard, because I wasn't alive, generations where wealth is built in one generation, but due to not really having that cohesive family dynamic, I've seen money also go away in generations, or really not be preserved well or hoarded, and seeing the negative effects of that. So I think it's also really important that even if a person does come from family money, or they will be inheriting businesses, or they will be inheriting property, that they've taken the time to learn what it takes to maintain it.
Would there be any absolute red flags financially when dating for you?
For me, I think someone who's not willing to address some of their money trauma, especially when it comes to spending issues. I think that's a big one, because nobody's perfect, but if you're not willing to address the problem, you're hiding money, like financial infidelity, you're keeping secrets.
Oh my God, is that a thing, financial infidelity?
It is. I mean, think about it. Like, I don't know if anyone had the situation, like when you were a kid, and Psychology of Money talks about it. Your mom, like, maybe you went on a shopping spree, didn't tell your dad, and like you're running upstairs to like hide the shoes in the closet so your dad doesn't know. Or if it's a man in the situation, maybe he made an investment on your behalf, the investment didn't go well and didn't tell you, but it's your shared money. These things do happen in relationships.
Whoa, imagine.
Yeah.
Oh my God, so it's not just like cheating having sex with someone else. It's actually cheating with your money.
That can happen. And I do think that financial strain can hurt relationships when you're not communicating regularly, when you don't share that same vision. I talked a lot before about shared values, sharing the vision. If someone's overspending and taking money out of that pool that you're supposed to use towards buying a house, that could be an issue down the line in terms of your financial goals together.
What would you say to people who, I don't know what it is, but I have a bit of I love the idea of combining finances. I love the idea of working with someone to have shared goals. But I also equally want to feel independent and not like, I mean, you don't know if someone's going to go and be financially, what's the word I'm looking for? Like financially cheat on you.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess from your perspective, how do you balance like the idea of financial independence while also having shared goals?
I'm not married, but in previous relationships, and even as I do start to date people, just having those regular check-ins, having those conversations. I sometimes even like to gamify it. Not that like personal finance can always be like the most fun chit chat to talk about, but like I love a good hypothetical. Like
yes,
I love to throw in a hypothetical.
Actually.
Yeah. So if you're trying to figure out like, do we have the same financial picture? If we were to go on a vacation, like who pays for what? Like, what does that look like? And you can really see if like we're on the same page about things, or if, you know, you're dating someone like I love an ambitious man, but sometimes, you know, there's like big dreams, but like no plan. So, you know, got to make sure like the talk is matching, the walk is matching the talk.
Funny.
So you can have those like hypothetical conversations where it's fun, it's playful, but like you're also getting to the nitty gritty.
And I think it's also important, it's not just the dating phase, it's also when and if you are married, because things can change and your goals and aspirations change, and you might have 2 kids and you haven't checked in to see if actually do we want the same things in 10 years, or is there some part of my financial hygiene that you feel uncomfortable with? Have I developed habits that are, you know, I think it's that constant being on the same page, right? It's not just in like the initial phases, because as your salaries or your income or your business grows and shrinks, and as you say, money comes and goes, are you responding in a similar way? And are you on the same page? Yeah,
I think one thing for me that I recommend and that I found helpful in relationships and that my parents have done is check-ins once a month. I think really sitting down and figuring out like what works for you. But with every option, again, I just encourage women to make sure that they're on all the accounts, that they are aware of what's going on. Don't be passive about it.
Know your password logins, everyone. Yes. Know how to get in and see. Yeah, because also people can start off lovely and beautiful and amazing, but you do need to be aware. I think that's the scariest thing is when people have no idea what's going on. It's scary to even look or open an account, but do you know what's scarier? Figuring out that you, all of a sudden, your husband or wife has spent all your money on gambling, or like you just don't know. And I think unless you're an active participant, maybe it's just starting by being curious, because also if someone's not open to speaking to you about your joint money or joint financial situation, like that's kind of concerning in itself, right? You asked me about red flags. That's one for me, because I just feel like if you're going to be open to being physical with someone, like you should also be able to be open about your financial picture. Oh, don't you think? That's powerful. Yes, if you see me naked, show me your bank account. So true. Oh God, there's so many things that I could speak to you about, but I'm also aware that you're busy and you're running, a business. Is there one kind of, little mic drop moment that you'd like to leave people with? Do it scared and surround yourself with winners. It's so simple. And for anyone that wants to find anything about what you're doing, let's just promote everything that you're working on. Yes, you can follow Caitlyn Kumi on all socials and follow Miss Empowher on all socials across LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I'm even now going to get on YouTube a little bit more. See you there. We'll put this on YouTube. I think I said this to someone yesterday. I was like, let's collaborate on YouTube. And then I thought, I'm pretty sure you can't collaborate on YouTube. But that's awesome. Yeah. And that's probably an example of you doing it scared, right? Like you haven't done YouTube, but you're like, here I go. Yep. So all platforms. And of course, our email newsletter for Miss Empowher is where you get a lot of the exclusive content, early access to events and opportunities. So definitely want you to subscribe there as well. But this has been such a great conversation. I hope you guys get a lot of gems from what we shared today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking with your friends about your salaries, all of that stuff.
And if you like what you heard, we would love if you could please hit subscribe wherever you're listening and leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode.
And it only takes 1 second and it would really make our week, our month, our year.
Yeah.
So please do it. Okay. Love you. Bye.
Okay, quickly. The Curve was created to empower and educate you about investing, but we are not financial advisors.
Our platform exists for educational purposes only, and it doesn't provide personalized investing advice for your individual needs and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision.
And always remember to do your own research before making any investment or financial decision.
We're here for any knowledge and support you need, but the final call is always yours.
And thanks for being here.
You got this.
Yeah, we know you got this.